everyone, welcome back to Play Casket, and today, you want to hear normie views? Because we're still normies into stuff.
Yeah, right. Sort of, kind of, yeah.
So, one of the things we've talked about on outside these podcasts is what things that we do know and we want to talk about, right? And this is kind of a different topic for us because we're basically going to talk about something we generally don't actually know much of. It's like our normie view orbiting other stuff because we're not involved in everything, you know? So I thought maybe even though we don't know much of it, we can at least share our opinions from the outside of what we see on things like this. So this is actually going to be our first time doing something like this. So if you guys actually like that, let us know. But we're going to go ahead and kind of get into a normie perspective of something that apparently, even with our we only gave ourselves like 20 minutes to kind of review things in the back. That was a lot of work. Like, there was a lot of words. I don't think I soaked it in. But we're going to be doing kind of like a normie perspective of Warhammer 40k.
Episode 61. Normies speak of Heresy.
So we're going to be very heretical to a lot of people who are very well involved in this.
You got the pitchfork. Get out your pitchforks. Yeah.
So let's kind of just pretext what we mean by like normie. Basically, like, you know of something, you kind of dabble in it maybe, but you're not like heavy into something. Like, maybe you play Mario because you do like those type of games, but you're not a huge Mario fan. You just kind of like side scrollers, stuff like that, right? So your knowledge of it is very limited to what's been kind of thrown at you, whether you liked it or not. So let's preface a lot of what we're coming from. Outside like the weird 15-20 minutes search that we've had, what is the amount of knowledge you have of Warhammer 40k?
I mean, most of it was just from the memes, like the Adeptus Custodes memes, and God Emperor Trump, and then
yeah, I forgot about that. Oh my God, those were kind of great, honestly. Like, even like outside the weird political division that some of the Twitter and internet like goofballs sit there and just talk about, right? The further we get away from that type of scenario, the more hilarious that's gonna be.
Yeah, honestly,
like that was like probably, I'm almost willing, if we look at like sales probably spiked at the time.
Yeah.
Right. So, what else beyond that? Is there other things you're familiar with?
I have started getting into it too, and I like the world. The world's just freaking insane and looks fun.
So you have like more knowledge than I do on this.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so
I mean, my friends are into it too, and then what is it? My friends are into it, and he knows a lot more about it and knows a lot more about the lore. But yeah, started out with the Black Templars, so yeah, my boys in black. Let's go.
So you have way more knowledge than I do. Most of my knowledge did come from memes too. The heretic type memes are hilarious. I like a lot of the memes that talk about like the spending and stuff too, because from what I've seen, it's expensive as hell.
Yeah.
And like, for the most part, like I've never had a problem with them. Like, I've always seen people play them like in the distance. I used to play like Pokemon card tournaments, and I used to play Magic tournaments and stuff. Like, not legit tournaments, but I would play during that time. Like, they would host tournaments, but then like during that warm up time, I'd be like playing matches with other people. And I'd see them like on the other side of the warehouse playing their tabletops, and I'll browse over there, but I had no idea what they were actually doing and stuff. Looked like a far more complicated D&D, you know. So for me, it was like, whoa, way too much when I first saw it, right? And outside that, literally the most of the knowledge I would get is kind of like the background radiation knowledge from World of Warcraft or Warcraft in general, because Warcraft was originally intended as a Warhammer game, and when Games Workshop kind of backed out, they're like 2 feet in already, and they're like, fuck it, and Blizzard made their own game. That's why you see a lot of similarities between how the orcs look of like the old orcs look in Warcraft to the way greenskins look like in Warhammer.
Is that why the bulky armor too and everything like that?
Maybe. I
Because I know most of them look like Space Marines too. That's kind of why.
Well, it wasn't even for 40k. It was traditional Warhammer.
Oh, okay.
And I think the bulky armor kind of like was exaggerated more to make the identity relatable at the same time different.
Okay.
You know, like kind of like how Pal World does, but we're not going down that road again. And I don't think StarCraft I think StarCraft did still pull inspiration for Warhammer 40k. I just think that it was not intended. You know, like it was just a natural evolution of Warcraft in space for StarCraft. But there was probably a lot of inspiration. I wouldn't doubt it. Warcraft and StarCraft both collectively make a lot of meme referential type jokes and story writing and stuff like that. A lot.
Oh, okay.
There's a family of Worgen for World of Warcraft that are all just a reference to the Osborns. They're not just like a side gig character in the background. Like, oh, that's that one guy right there. No, he's in a lot of lore moments too.
Oh wow!
Like he's not a leading character, but he's a leading. For Worgen fans, he's a beloved character. He just comes up periodically, and there he is.
No, okay.
You know, like he's not huge, but he's huge to the Worgen fans. And that's all I really know. And it's kind of embarrassing because I do own 4 Switch games that are Warhammer based. Haven't played a single one of them. and for people who are probably new to this podcast, I have over 1,700 Switch games physical. It's not the fact that I'm scared of the games. It's just that I have so damn many that I do try out a bunch of stuff and stuff. I haven't gotten around to them, and I'll explain kind of why in a little bit too. But that's literally all I have. Like I don't know too much outside the 20 minutes we kind of skimmed through some stuff, and literally just following one of the guys on Twitter, I've learned more passively by people like just owning a lot of these people who are making really hot takes on stuff.
I just like the series. I just like the lore. The lore is like just metal as hell.
Oh yeah, so let's just go ahead and hop into it. What is your first impressions of the franchise?
One of it is like the one I remember the most is Total Biscuit talking about it, because he was like, in all the sci-fi worlds, Star Trek is the one you will want to live in. Warhammer is the one you do not want to live in, because there's this constant death, dying, and surviving, and everybody, like half the galaxy's blown up, and yeah, it's just complete shit. And like I'm trying to remember the lore for the God Emperor, because that's where like they clone all the Space Marines from, and then he can't die. So they put him on a golden throne to where he'll live forever, but he'll die, or he's in the constant state of dying. So they put him on a golden throne, and they sacrifice like 1,000 virgins a day to keep him alive. And if he dies, I guess like a new emperor will be born. But the one that's alive, the one that's like on the throne right now, is holding back the gate of chaos, and if he dies, the gate of chaos opens up, and it has a chance to destroy the world. So they're screwed if they do, and they're screwed if they don't.
Damned if they do, damned if they don't type of situation.
But the new emperor can save them from that too, though. So
right. So that's more knowledge than I had of my first impression of the franchise.
Everybody's probably like, he's wrong. Kill this guy.
That's some heretical nonsense. Yeah. No. My first impression is like literally without knowing anything. It just looks like it's a gritty, just like balls to the wall, just genuine chaos abound, war torn everything. Like I have not seen a single instance, just from our proxy looking, of any one culture that has some kind of like peaceful city state. because when you think about it, even in StarCraft, in the contrast, in the comparison right now, when you look at like the Protoss, they have cities and capitals that are not touched by the other opposing forces, or even other opposing Protoss. So you see like a multi-layered political spectrum, social construct, like building the depth of the social culture of that race. I don't see any of them like that. No untouched areas in Warhammer 40k. Like even your safest bastions are constantly inundated with absolute war.
Yeah.
Like there's no genuine safe space. A lot of the culture you see in a lot of the game, like franchise and games and stuff like that, just even looking at them, it gives me this impression that every part of the culture of Warhammer, and especially 40k, is all that you understand of those characters are what they will do to win their battles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all of what they know, all of what they do, all of what's structured and discussed and invented is to win a war that is just a constant war. And it's not going anywhere anytime soon. There's no Roman peace capital. There's none of that's going on right now. And I'm not knocking this. Like, I honestly think it makes this franchise far more intense. You know, like the people who go, well, I think it's gonna kind of fun. No, I think this franchise isn't just a fun. It's an intensity. It's something you're invested in when you get into it. Yeah. You know, like that's how I feel about that. Seeing how intense from the outside, seeing how intense all of these factions are just going ham on one another. There's just no ending to that, right? Mm-hmm. There's just a brutality there. So when you get into this franchise, when you get into this hobby, you're invested. You know what I mean? You are genuinely invested in this type of intensity. You know, you might have fun yourself, but like your perspective of that lore and the lore is so intense, it has to be respected. Mm-hmm. You know, like that's how I see it. Like if you're going in there, you're not going in there with a fucking head cannon and like, oh my god, you know, I think they should be no,
just
like
friends.
Like no, actually I kind of think these two should ship. They're all killing each other. None of these motherfuckers should ship. like that's really how this works. Yeah. And because of that intensity, I actually have a lot more respect for the franchise from the outside, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's literally a game that if you're interested and you're genuinely interested and you're gonna go into it, you're gonna end up getting into it. Mm-hmm. Right? And because of that, I think that's pretty intense as far as my first impressions go. Like it's literally like this is ignoring the lore and stuff, because my first impressions, I didn't know much about the lore.
Well, it also falls into the arms race category of your friend buying your friend buying units, and then he beats you. You're like, oh, this bastard. So you spend $120 on your own units. Yeah. He's screw this guy, and then he spends another $120 on his. So it becomes this huge arms race of you guys just buying so many miniatures. And then you guys like, okay, I invested like $5,000 into this game now.
And then you're just invested.
Yeah.
And like, I think even when you have friends that are in it, you're just gonna end up in it.
Yeah.
Eventually you're gonna be like, no motherfucker, I'm gonna go ahead and prove you both wrong. Wait, I just spent $2,000 today. You know, like I can see that. I can generally see that. A lot of, like, outside you, I don't really have many friends that are in that.
Yeah. Like, it is a huge time sink, that's for sure.
Yeah. And
it's a lot of money. You got to dedicate time to building it, painting it, and then actually playing.
Yeah, and that's just for the tabletop.
Yeah,
you know? there's still like books and stuff too, and I've seen just like a preview of the stack of books that are out there. I'm like, that's still a lot to chew into.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be genuinely into the minis, but I think that's like the corest of core franchises. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like if you're a video game franchise fan, like if you're a Halo fan, you're not just gonna have the games, you're gonna have like all the merch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's how I feel about this Warhammer 40K is
just like
you might be a fan of the franchise, but in like you're not hardcore until you start investing in minis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's just like Gundams too. If you build Gunpla, you're like, oh, I don't watch the anime, but you build the kits. Now you're gonna watch the anime someday.
Yeah. So like, there's a possibility that you're gonna get into the minis, but at the same time, there's some people that are just like, I don't have the space. Like this mausoleum is small for a lot of that. You know what I mean? Like I'd have to get rid of games, and I love games way more than minis. You know, like I just do.
No, you can make time for both.
Nope. I already got to run the social medias and stuff. That's on you.
Because I was into Gunpla, and I was like, I got Gunpla burning a hole in my pocket. I don't need to get Warhammer. Oh shit! Yeah.
Oops.
The God Emperor spoke, and I answered.
But yeah, no. I think that's really cool. So, what about like factions and stuff? Since you're well and you're at least better versed in this than I am. Is there like particular factions that you're kind of more into and stuff like that?
No, I'm not a heretic. I am for humanity. I mean, I love the Space Marines are like where it's at, and just to like how like this is the fight just for humanity, and all the adeptus custodes. God, I can't say that word. Memes are just freaking amazing. I love them so much. And then I got into the Black Templars because, what is it? The Sabaton song. This one, I can't really play it, but yeah, on a crusade.
We'll just have some weird random cover gone through a recorder, right for that.
Yeah, but Black Templars are cool as hell because I know like certain rules for Space Marines. They need to be like a certain size, unless you're on a crusade. And if you're on a crusade, your size is unlimited. So there's like a trillion Black Templars just out there destroying chaos. Yeah, they're cool as hell though.
Right on. So I didn't know too much about factions. I actually like asked a couple like social media areas and stuff, and I think it helped me kind of look into some factions and stuff. The only ones I really knew was the Imperium of Man and Orcs. That's it. Apparently there's tribes beyond that too, which makes sense, but I didn't know that at first. But the people were asking me like, hey, you know, like what about the Xenos and the Chaos type of factions and stuff like that? So first impressions when I heard that, and just going off of what I've seen, I thought Chaos was like demonic entities and stuff, right? Just demonic, evil demons and summoned and shit like that, whatever. And Xenos was just like short for xenomorphic monsters, which I thought were basically like the Zerg, which I found out they're called Tyranids.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't know that until I had to look this up. So thank you for that 20 minutes of trying to find out what they all were. But so my understanding of that is that the Chaos as a faction isn't necessarily a faction of Chaos. It's kind of like a religious doctrine, but not really. It's kind of like what do you call it?
Knowledge or a realm.
Kind of like Cthulhu-esque mythos, where like it's more of a an entity of maddening and madness that just instead of just causing you to just be driven mad, you're driven to this passion of causing chaos and like becoming essentially this force of evil nature, from my understanding.
Okay.
So it's so this chaos is like kind of like this psychic energy that basically whispers to the back of your head until you kind of like pop off and just go nuts, and then you collectively kind of get merged together with a lot of these other goofballs and stuff from other races and stuff like that too. And Xenos is basically kind of like, from my understanding, it was kind of what they said was kind of like stranger or like different in culture and stuff. So there's a different alien races out there. They're just called Xenos. So
okay.
That implies stuff such as, I'm gonna probably butcher some names, like Tau. Those Tyranids are also considered part of it. and the Tau look like kind of like Protoss in the comparison that I can make it. They're like a highly advanced energy based type of race.
Robots.
Race.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're like reaching type of like perfection for their species, from my understanding. Again, I'm like, this is Normie looking so I'm saying some heretical shit. And of course, everyone's favorite, the orcs. Which is another thing I found out. You actually was the one that even told me about it. The reason why orcs are all male, because they don't really even have a gender. They just procreate through spores.
Yep.
So they're basically cordyceps that have their own legs.
Yeah.
And teeth. Which is actually really interesting to me, because that kind of puts them in that state of force of nature, and kind of falls in the line of the chaos type of thing.
Yeah.
Because nature in of itself is chaotic. Like when you look at a tree and how it like grows and stuff, it's just chaotic. It's not. There's no rhyme or reason to how it chooses the stuff. It just chooses to grow a branch there and grows a branch there and stuff like that. It is what it is. That's how nature handles things, right? There's nothing orderly about nature, and I think that's why it makes orcs so much more appreciative, because they're not just a member of chaos seeking destruction. They are quite literally a force of nature in that aspect.
Okay.
They spawn through spores, and they're just like saying the most weirdly British shit. And then they put them in some metal shit, and they're like, we're going to go ahead. And that explains why they are so reckless, too.
Just guns.
Guns and guns and guns. And not only that, like the Daka and stuff.
Yeah.
But like all their ships and stuff are like kind of built to fucking explode. You know? Like, well, if I can't kill anybody, I'm killing everything else near me. You know, like it really amps up that whole force of nature type of perspective on it, and that's, I think, is really kind of cool, because you get a lot of like orcs out there in general, like the racial stereotype of orcs is that they're tribal, they're superstitious, they're often very well versed in like kind of like nature magic, if they are. Otherwise, they're war matrons, and they just go around pillaging and razing villages to the ground. You know?
Yeah.
And like literally, I think the only real ones that are outside that are Dragon Quest's orcs, which kind of look like pigs, Warcraft's orcs, and technically these orcs.
Okay.
You know, like, because there's no reason for them to pillage stuff. They just destroy things. That's all they keep doing. They're just a force of nature.
Yeah.
You know? So it's kind of crazy, you know? What about your opinion on the hobby culture? Obviously, you just said that you're going to be invested in the minis and stuff, so you already have a much more positive note on that than I do on the hobby culture.
It's expensive as shit. I don't know what else to say. run while you can.
So,
or run to get them while you can. Right?
One of the two. Like, I kind of need these companies to survive this next economic crash. Please buy. So I've never really, like I said, I've seen them periodically and stuff, and they're really dedicated. Like, the people who are truly in on it is in on it. Mm-hmm. You know, they're invested. They're like, this shit is my shit.
You don't think about the price, you just buy it. That's always
No, dude, directly, dude. Generally, I feel like that's very. You don't see that very often in a lot of hobbies anymore.
Yeah,
you really don't. Like, there used to be a lot of hobbies where, like, even trains and stuff, like the people who used to be into like hobby trains and stuff, they were in it to win it type of thing, you know? And you don't have that many hobbies like that anymore. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of actually sad when you look at that. Like, it feels like it is one of those last bastions that a hobby means something to these guys.
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal when you think about it. Like, they're literally saying, no, this hobby should stay alive in its traditional sense, because nobody, like, everything else got mocked into the ground. Hobby cars, hobby trains, hobby planes, remote control stuff, because people used to have that as hobby, like adjust their remote control cars, see if they can do flips and stuff. Mm-hmm. None of that even matters anymore. Just buy one and whatever, you know, and that's it. You know, like there used to be cars that people would customize and stuff. That was a thing. And you don't get a lot of that anymore. There's very, very few outside Warhammer and Warhammer 40K's like hobby scene, and these guys are knocking it out of the park though. Like they're lifting the weights, you know what I mean? Like I've even had.
Well, it's nice having. It's nice being able to do stuff with your miniatures as well too, because even with Gundams, like a lot of the builders I build with, they want to do more than just build it and display it. Mm-hmm. And everybody's always like, oh, I kind of wish there was like a game aspect to it. Bandai's always like thinking about how to do it too, but you have like 6 to 10 inch figures that you're building, so it's like you can't really move them across the tables.
Yeah.
Despite them being cheaper, but with the miniatures, you know, you could carry like 20 to 30 of them and bring them in. Army. Yeah. And then you could do so. It's more than just so. If there's like the painting, the building, and the playing aspects. So you'll have like 3 different branches of people who just want to do exclusively one thing. If you don't want to play, you could just build, and vice versa. But with Gundams, you're just like, well, I just build it and display it.
Yeah,
but
and like
Warhammer,
there's some people who can customize their build, but then after you're done customizing it, then what? You know, like I can see where you're coming from with that. And dude, I even had people try to recruit me before, like, dude, you really need to play and stuff like that. It looks cool, but the moment I see those price points, I'm like, I can't break into that.
Yeah.
Like that is a high barrier of entry for me.
Yeah.
Like,
and then if you really like it, well, I mean, one thing you
mad respect to the people who can like budget that shit out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just waiting for GameStop to reach the moon for me to actually afford a case of this. Like that's how I am right now. But for the most part, like, I'm broke. But it blows my mind how these guys can like be dedicated. Like, it doesn't matter like your political alignment into this. They're like, the people who are genuinely dedicated are dedicated. Dude, some of the people, like, the more dedication they have, you see the more dynamic paint jobs. Now, it could be crappy. Some of the paint jobs could be crappy, but the more dynamic those jobs are, like they do different type of changes. They say, like, look, these guys are gonna be this faction and this faction. Like, they have separate factions and stuff like that too, and it's really cool. But for the most part, like, I can't get into that. Like, I just financially cannot get into that. I know y'all just heard me just say I have 1,700 Switch games. I'm pretty sure that will buy me 3 sets. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, no, like, outside, I think it's really, I think a lot of from the outside looks pretty cool. But let's go ahead and address the weird elephant in the room. The weird drama, and what actually sparked this whole thought process to begin with was, like, in my periphery, I saw a controversy, which I didn't really think much of a controversy until I heard more of the context later on, was having female space marines.
Gatekeep your hobbies. Don't let these people.
No. Before we get into this, before you immediately do that, this is how normie I saw this, right?
Uh-huh.
From the outside, I was like, wouldn't they already have them? Wouldn't even matter because they would be wearing the same shit anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like, it didn't click for me, right? Because I didn't know the context of what the Space Marines actually were. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until somebody from this whole thing was like, I don't see the problem because I'm on the outside, right? So I don't, like, from the outside, you don't get that clone bit yet.
Yeah.
Right? So the majority of people were like, no, they're cloned off of the Emperor of Man, and the females kind of melt into mush. Mm-hmm. That's the most generic way they described it to me, but it was far more detailed. I just put a nice little package right there. And from that point on, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that shouldn't make sense. Because the way the people keep pushing on it is kind of embarrassing. Because when you think about it, like, honestly, it goes to a statement. A game, there should be a game for anyone, but not for everyone. Because basically you should have some kind of market for everything. Like you appeal to a market for anyone, right? That means there's this game for that group, this game for this group, and that game for that group, and goes on. You can't make something for every group.
Yeah.
You just can't, because you homogenize your franchise's identity to become softer. And when you make it softer that anybody could be anything, then why even have the lore as heavy and metal as it is?
Yeah.
Why can't they be friends? Why can't they be shipped? Because literally, like, when people keep saying, no, you're going over example, but honestly, that is, like, it's not a slippery slope, because honestly, when you have laws that say, this is the established lore, this is how it works, and if you just could just go, oh, well, let's change it, and then go, okay, then what cannot be changed?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
What
there's
if
no
they
laws.
find world peace there?
Yeah.
Like that, like there's you lose identity doing so.
That's called fan fiction. Yeah.
Yeah. and headcanon and crap. And the thing is, every book, every cartoon, every game and stuff, they follow universal laws, and they're universal. Period. Their laws are things that help build and understand the concept of what that franchise, that series, that book, that cartoon, that game is trying to convey to you. So when you always look at the next game and stuff, there's things that it has to understand. Like the rule of 2 for the Sith in Star Wars, or why Wile E. Coyote can never catch Roadrunner and stuff like that. There's a lot of laws that are there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it more interesting, because they have to listen to those laws, but it makes it sure that you're wow, I just lost the words. Who cares about those words? Apparently.
Let me make sure that you're not pulling shit out of your ass. It's kind of like,
yeah. On top of that, like it softens the edges of your identity.
yeah,
And like when you soften your edges, the way I compare it to it is like how the early 2000s cartoons look to what Cartoon Network looks like now.
Mm-hmm.
All the characters kind of have that jelly bean style look. It's soft, it's round, it's approachable, it's nowhere near threatening. But then you look at like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the early 2000s, harder edges, sharper. You look at even if you don't take the intensive ones, look at Fairly Odd Parents, sharp corners, sharp edges, made interesting face shapes, made interesting body shapes, made characters overreact and talk and animate in a very unique way that the other characters did not need to. Whereas now, everyone acts and moves and animates the same way, because they're all the same body type.
yeah,
So there's no need to. And when you do that to a franchise, you lose interest. Like, there's a reason why not many people are watching some of these games or these cartoons and playing these games and stuff, because they're soft and they're not threatening. They don't got the image,
What's as crazy as like making a pizza for everybody?
Yeah. Well, it goes to that. It goes to that saying. You can't make a game for everyone, because then it's a game for no one.
Yeah,
It really is.
Yeah.
Because then no one's gonna play it. So you have rules and laws that are and have to be obeyed and respected when you enter these type of like areas. Like, you don't go into a hobby and go, you know what? I think Mario and Luigi should be gay. No, they're brothers. It literally says it in the name. Like, you can't do that. And when, like, it was funny. All it took is just one guy say, "You do know they're clones, right?" I'm like, "No." And then he explained what the clones were, where they're from, and what happens to the females. That was it.
and even then though
And
too,
even then,
like
even some of the males would melt into much.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like the strongest of the strong. Like, it wasn't just dudes just get to do dude things. So it was literally the strongest of the strong, and that makes sense. And when you have a franchise as gritty and war-torn and intense as you have it now, it would make sense that you have training regimens and cloning regimens and systems in place that are just as fucking metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh no, if you try to do anything weaker than this top tier of men, they fucking melt. I'm like, well, fuck. You know? Like,
well, even then, though, too, it's like nothing is stopping you from just kit bashing your own shit.
Yeah, and that's another thing I think is really interesting. This franchise, and I think is really respectable, is you can kit bash your own headcanon on that. You just don't need them to acknowledge your headcanon. Mm-hmm. You can do it. You can literally do your own, and that's... Even a lot of these people are like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can make Necrons team up with your Imperium if you wanted, like in your head, you know?
Yeah.
It's just never going to happen in the lore.
Just play the fucking game, Jesus Christ, people.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just brings me back to like D&D as well too, when they had characters in wheelchairs. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, are you gonna buy the game now? No, but thank you for putting wheelchairs in.
Yeah, like that's the thing that just makes no sense. Like, you can't appeal. Like, again, it's one of those, if you make a game for everybody, it's for nobody.
Yeah,
it literally is. That's what it is. Like, because the more you like, you're trying to make a first-person RPG, adventure, platformer, collectathon, puzzle game,
graphic novel.
You know, like you can't do that. There's so many mechanics in that won't appeal to everyone, and then you ruin it for everyone involved, because every person who likes a certain aspect will hate another aspect of another part of the game.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. And and many people keep saying, oh, well, it's only adding, it doesn't take away.
You can do it yourself.
Yeah, you don't need that added, though. That's the point. It's of no consequence to you to not have it.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand on it, because it's stupid. And that's kind of like, from an outside perspective, yeah, that needs to happen. Mm-hmm. You need to make sure your laws in your universe that you appreciate are respected. You don't just get to have everyone come in and go, no, I think everyone should be pink and everyone's wearing rainbows. Okay, then what? You know, what are you doing with that?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. You know? So, gatekeep your damn hobbies. And Warhammer 40k is actually doing a pretty good job of it, honestly. And I think that's where it really benefits. And it's funny how I've seen by proxy some of these people who trash talk, and they're like, well, the people who are against this are awful people, and when literally it's just, there's no real argument. Honestly, it says it in the rules here. The story's not gonna go change for you. You can make your own, but this is it. That's it.
Yeah.
Period. And there you go. That's literally the end of the story right there.
Usually, I think it's just people who want to attach something to their name.
It's just attention. It's just attention. So they could be like, yeah, you see that? I helped make that. Legitimately believes that. Yeah. Makes sense. But, yeah, this is a very lengthy one, too. Thank you all for listening. We're going to wrap this up right here.
We talk of heretic. Of heresy.
Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Like, you've already basically announced, like, would you join that type of community? You already basically said yes.
Yeah.
If I had a lot of money, probably, maybe. Like, I would need money and connections. Like, I'd probably play with you, but I don't know anybody else.
No,
like,
okay.
I really don't. I don't have anybody that are hobbyists that I know. Like, they're like I know hikers. I know like weird collectors and stuff like that. But that's it. Like,
okay.
I don't have anybody really crazy into hobbyist type of stuff. But maybe one day, maybe not. Maybe if I retire and I get old, I'm bored and I can't find anybody who sells trains or know what trains are. Like, I'll probably have to go to Warhammer 40k. But we're gonna wrap that up. I want to say, for all of you who are listening to us, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for coming this far. If you like our content, feel free to like, subscribe, and share. Let us know how you like these normie perspectives. We might actually do a couple more on stuff that we're not familiar with, either be it anime or stupid Netflix shows or even Stranger Things, because I don't know squat about that. Anything that you feel good on that. Like, if you were like, hey, I would like, we can do some more of these. So, thank you guys for hanging out. If you give us feedback, and as always, we will see you on the other side. Hey everyone, this is Paraka.
And Ghost.
I would like to say thank you for listening to our podcast.
If you like our content, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe and share our video with your friends.
You can also follow and support us on other social media such as Minds and Rumble. Links in the description below.